really interesting and relevant to this, which is called Mushin. And I didn't actually come across this because of my involvement with karate. I discovered it because I'm writing a book, and some of it's set in Japan, so I was having to do some research on Japan. And this is when I came across Mushin, and I'm absolutely fascinated with it. So Mushin means no mind. And it's achieved when a person's mind is free from thoughts of anger, fear, or ego during combat or everyday life. Doesn't everyday life just sometimes feel like a combat zone? It really does. Um, so Mushin, it's that mental state. Mu means no mind, and Shin means heart, mind, and spirit. Um, and it's where our mind isn't plagued by thoughts, and that's what we want to achieve, not to be plagued by unnecessary thoughts. It can be achieved by meditation, but it's very popular in martial art. And if our minds are free of emotions and thoughts, our stress responses aren't being triggered. So we're not exhausting ourselves being stressed. But if you look at these images, the top one it's obviously a karate class. It's very physical, okay? And when I'm in karate class, very often I get there a little bit stressed because I'm watching the clock. I've got a busy schedule, and I start I start the class thinking about the email that I need to send, and the deadline that's approaching, the article I haven't finished writing, the bills I need to pay, and I just feel stressed. 20 minutes into the class, I usually think I'm never going to make it to the end of this class. It's so hard. But I forgot all about the email. It's insignificant because my body's working so hard. And at the end of the class, I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm clear headed and think, right, I'll just pop that email when I need to. I sort my diary and I just manage what needs managing. My mind's been reset. And that's what exercise does. It resets our minds, it clears our minds. And remember what I said earlier about going for a walk or a run or whatever, if you feel angry, often the anger goes as you're moving and being physical. So it's about resetting your mind and emotions. And it's about achieving that state of mind where there's no anticipation or overthinking, and just being free to act without stress, without our minds being plagued by so many stress factors. Um, so I think this is a state of mind that could be really useful in other areas of life and help us see things more clearly, to be objective. Because when you reset your mind, you're bringing objectivity back. When you're angry or upset or overly stressed, you can't be objective. Um, and it's about that clear-headed, inspired feeling after exercise, because you do feel inspired after exercise. You're already thinking of the next exercise class. Um, so that's just something to think about anyway. Um, I really wanted to bring this in. I find this really interesting because this is something that has become really popular during recent years, and it's cold water swimming. And obviously, we're talking about Moon and Neptune, which are water planets, so we couldn't not talk about swimming. And people swear by the benefits, not only for their physical health, but their mental health too. So I was thinking, how does this work? Okay. So in essence, the cold water shocks the body. It has actually been compared to electroconvulsive therapy. And when your body's shocked, all the blood, when the body gets very, very cold or it's got an electric shock, all the blood is diverted away from the less important parts of the body and diverted to the most important parts, such as the heart and the brain. So when you shock your body by going into that cold water, your brain is getting a massive rush of blood. And all those structures in the brain that I've just been talking about are getting flooded with blood. They're getting loads of energy, and they're producing all those feel good chemicals. And I think it's just as simple as that. It really is. It's you go into cold water. It's very, very difficult at first, and then you come out and you just feel completely reset. Um, and I have to say, I came into this while watching a series on BBC earlier this year, involving Wim Hof, and it was called Freeze the Fear. And a load of celebrities went out and stayed up in the mountains where it was very cold, and they were trying all these extreme activities. You know, and then they started dealing with all their emotional issues that were coming out, etc., etc. Um, but Wim Hof, he's called the Iceman, and essentially he's an extreme athlete, and he's very much used these extreme activities mostly in the cold. You know, he swims under frozen lakes, he swims under the ice, and then he goes running with no shoes or clothes on in snow. Um, but he's used that and combined it with breath work as well. Some of his breath work, I believe, is quite controversial, and I don't know a huge amount about that. But I just wanted to use the cold and the stress and the shock factor here, because what he's used it to do is to combat grief in the past. So if you read the quote there, proper exposure to the cold starts a cascade of health benefits, reduces inflammation, improves the immune system, balances the hormone levels, which is very Moon and Venus, improves the sleep quality, production of endorphins. Again, that's Moon, feel good chemicals in the brain. And he started recommending that people take cold showers. So I was like, I'm going to try that. So I started off, I made 10 seconds. That's all I could manage, 10 seconds. Then I built it to 20 seconds, then 30, then 40. And now I can tolerate a cold shower for the entire length of a song on the radio. So I'll stay in a cold shower for the length of a song that I like, and you come out afterwards feeling amazing, completely reset, completely different to when you went in. Because believe me, when you blast that shower onto cold, you are completely shocked. Um, but you do get used to it. Um, so I just want to pull out a few key components here as well. Um, So this is the only chart that I have today that's not AA rated. So let's just be a bit cautious about the degree of that moon, and let's just not look at the angles or houses, just in case the time isn't right. Okay. And I know the chart's quite complicated, and some astrologers take all the aspects out, but I always like to leave them in because our eyes need to be trained to pick everything out. So here we have an unaspected, probably unaspected Virgo moon, which is very much into health and particularly mental health with Mercury ruling the moon there. And of course that would dominate the chart if that moon is unaspected. And the reason he started with all these extreme activities was because his wife committed suicide. So this has helped him combat the grief. Um, We've got a very strong Neptune down here in Scorpio. Of course, Scorpio is very much about those deep, dark waters that he goes diving in, those frozen lakes. I think he's very much plumbing those deep, dark, emotional, terrifying depths, definitely. Um, and that's in a water trine to Mars up there in Cancer. So it's very much about combating. Mars is combating that grief and healing the pain and suffering of his wife's suicide, and he's using water, using extreme cold water. Um, but with Neptune here, it's actually the focal point of a yod with Venus and Gemini. Venus and Gemini might explain the breath work that he values so much. And we've got Mercury in Aries there. And of course, Mercury is very much about the left brain, and Aries is about the head and brain too. So this is very much about what's going on in his head and how he wants to heal all of that. And of course, you know, Aries there, it's very much about that fight, flight, adrenaline, and stress feeling. And all of his sports, all of his activities are incredibly extreme. And they're stressing the body, they're stressing the mind, they're making you face your fear. Um, and because of the feeling that you get afterwards. It's as simple as that, the feeling that you get afterwards, that you've reset your mind. And of course, with Neptune on the apex to a yod, he's found a fix for all these potentially difficult energies in his chart and events in his life. And Neptune would also give him that mass collective reach because he is really pretty famous. And I did think that Uranus there, which is stationary Uranus in Leo, that describes the extreme the very much extreme nature of his sport, which I thought was quite cool, basically. Okay. So is everyone okay? Anyone got any questions or comments? Should I just keep going?
Superb, absolutely superb, Leanne.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Sandy. Anyway, there's more to come. There's more to come.
Oh, carry on. I mean,
oh,
I'm
yes, yes.
intrigued.
No. Good, good. So I just wanted to mention the second house. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's something else for you to think about. Um, so how many times have you thought, I can't be bothered to go to the gym, can't be bothered to go for a bike ride, can't be bothered to walk, or you can get off the sofa, I just want to watch Netflix all day?
Nearly every day. Nearly every day.
I know. So then, but you force yourself, and then how do you feel afterwards? You never feel worse. You never feel worse afterwards. You always feel better, and you feel energized physically and mentally because energy creates energy. And in medical astrology, the second house is seen as the storehouse of energy. You know, esoterically, it's said to contain a life force or chi energy. Um, so I find this a really interesting house to look at, you know, regarding exercise and keeping our energies up, energy levels up. And of course, the second house is associated with the throat, the neck. You know, it's ruled by Venus and Taurus, and the structures contained within the throat and neck. And within the throat and neck, we've got the parathyroids, which are responsible for calcium uptake, which is essential for cell function. But more importantly, the thyroid gland, which I've already discussed, which is ruled by the moon, sits in the throat. And that helps regulate the body's energy levels by regulating metabolism. And of course, the second house, it's about food. It's how we fuel ourselves too. And if you think our body is a resource, you know, the second house is all about resource. And so we need to treat our body like a resource, but not just our body, our mind and emotional selves. So we need to treat them like resources as well and make sure they're fueled, not just by diet, but by other things, which I'm going to discuss in a minute. Um, so I think when we're looking at a chart and thinking about all the themes I've been talking about today, let's look at the second house. Let's look at the ruler on the cusp as a source of energy. You know, look where the ruler sits in the chart and use it. Use it. Look at any planet in the second house and use them too. There's always a way to use them, and I'll give some examples of this in the next couple of charts I'm going to look at. It might be easier to describe that way. Um, but it's like, let's look at the second house as well, because energy does create energy, and we need to treat ourselves as resources. We treat the second house like a bank. We're going to deposit energy into this bank so that we can draw on the energy as well. We're investing when we deposit into the second house of energy, definitely. Okay, so let's have a think about what sort of exercise might suit you. You know, whether you're just thinking about getting fitter, you want to feel better, but what's doable for you? We can't all be Djokovic. You know, we can't all be Ronaldo or people like that. We don't want to be, do we? It's got to fit into our lives and it's got to suit us. So we're thinking about what's going to keep your mind, body, and soul healthy and fit. You know, how you're going to balance your inner and outer self, and what's going to feed your body and soul. That's that second house that I've just been talking about. So instead of going, to naturally to the sun and Mars to look what sort of activity might suit you, let's look to the moon and Neptune because not everyone likes working out. I can't imagine anything worse than going to a gym and going on a running machine or whatever they do in a gym. I can't imagine anything worse, you know? And just because you might, for example, have Mars in Sagittarius in your chart, and you think, oh, I should be a good runner, you might not enjoy running. I hate running. I haven't got Mars in Sagittarius, but just because you do have Mars in Sagittarius, for example, doesn't mean you have to go and enjoy running. Okay, there could be other things that suit you. So, for example, I am Capricorn rising and I've got a Capricorn moon rising as well. So I love any form of activity or sport where there's lots of repetitive, disciplined training where I can use my physical strength. I'm not particularly big, but I'm physically very strong. And I like lots of repetitiveness. So when we do karate, of course, we do all the fighting and sparring, which is great. Um, but we also do something called kata, which is a set routine of movements which simulate all the movements that you use when you're fighting. And it's like a choreographed routine, and it takes an awful lot of discipline, a lot of muscular control, a lot of mental control, and that really really suits me. I love it. And when you do kata, you do it by yourself. I've got a Capricorn moon. I like to do it by myself sometimes. Um, but there's so many options. What do you enjoy? What makes you feel good? It might be a brisk walk. It might be a swimming if you've got lots of water in your chart. You might enjoy running with a friend, or you might enjoy running alone. You might want to exercise alone. I'm going to discuss the social aspect of exercise as well in a second. Um, you might want to go to the gym, or do you want to do something in the comfort of your own home? If you've got a strong 12th house, or you've got moon in the 4th house, perhaps you might just want to sort of exercise at home, and that's fine. It's got to be what's right for you and what's going to make you feel good. So it's just a slightly different way of thinking about exercise, because we often feel very pressured into keeping fit, don't we? And it's not about being the fittest, the strongest, the fastest. It's about how you feel afterwards. So I'm going to look at a couple of real life examples here. How are we doing time wise, Rod?
We okay. We okay. We still have a 15 minutes.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So I'm going to look at a couple of examples here. And this is a lovely lady who agreed to share her chart and experience with us. And this lady is she's black belt in Wadi Ryu karate, which is a different discipline of karate to what I do. But she then swapped discipline into Shotokan karate, the same as me. But she has to regrade to get that black belt. That's what happens when you swap disciplines in martial arts. So she's now working towards black belt in this discipline. So that would be amazing when she gets that, because she will, because she'll be black belt in 2 different disciplines, which is amazing. But unfortunately, she injured her knee quite badly in January earlier this year, so has had quite a bit of time out. So if we look at her chart here, before I actually go into the chart, we'll see she's got Saturn rising, and she's also got Capricorn on the 5th house. So there's a knee theme there, perhaps, because Saturn and Capricorn would rule the knees. So that's not so much of a surprise there. So let's look at the chart, and I do have the transits and progressions for when the injury happened, if anyone's interested. So what do we have here? We're going straight for the moon. So we've got a Leo moon conjunct Mars. That's a really active, energetic, expressive moon there. Great for martial arts. You've got to have some Mars there for martial arts, don't you, for the combat? Um, and often there's a very strong Leo theme. When we train in karate, we're not just training with people of the same sex. We train with men as well. The men and women mix and train together. So there's a lot of masculine energy when we go training, without a doubt. But it's in the 12th house there, so there's that feeling that there's a need to escape, isn't there? And when she goes karate training, there's perhaps this is where she can escape and express herself in an uninhibited, creative way. And she can release the energy there, and find emotional release, as well as that muscular release. Moon's emotions, Mars is the muscles. So there's very much about a release and an escape there, and there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of fire, isn't there? It's very fiery. Um, the moon is also steadily quadrat the sun, although the aspect line isn't on there. Sorry. So the sun is unaspected in Aries there, and so there's an awful lot of fire, isn't there? There's a lot of fire that needs to be expressed in some way, and a lot of creativity as well. You know, because this will extend to other areas of our life too. And of course, Mars is in mutual reception with that Sun. You know, that Mars and Sun are in each other's sign. So again, very, very strong martial fiery energy. So martial arts is such a really good fit here. But with so much fire, and you know that Leo Aries energy, you do wonder if there was perhaps a tendency to ignore any niggles. There's a lot of positivity in this chart, so you know perhaps any niggles that the knee was giving ignored. I'm not sure, perhaps, you know, without speaking to her. And then we've got that Moon Mars trine Neptune down there in the fourth house. So again, there's more fire. There's an awful lot of fire in this chart. Moon's in the 12th house, Neptune's in the fourth. These are water houses. I know these planets are in fire, but they're in water houses. So there's a lot here about emotions and healing, and it's about feeling at home. You know, this sport, I think, is where she really, really feels at home. But you know, there's a lot of activity and a lot of positivity here too. Moving on to Mercury there, because we can't ignore Mercury, and of course it's ruled by Neptune in this chart. I want to look at the quote here because I asked this lady and the next example for some to answer some questions for me to help with this study. And one of the quotes here is, having been sat on the injury bench now for 8 months, it definitely negatively impacts my mental well-being, as well as not benefiting from the physical participation. I miss my routine. The sixth house, of course, is all about routine. My fellow karateka learning and progressing. I think that Mercury in the sixth house just absolutely sums up that quote there. It's absolutely lovely. So the routine of training and sharing and learning is very much part of the value of this particular exercise here. And of course, Mercury in the sixth is about mental well-being, without a doubt. Very significant, of course, because Mercury is the chart ruler here. You know, we've got Virgo on the ascendant, so there very much is that mental health going on there. Venus is very interesting in this chart as well. I haven't talked much about Venus tonight, or this afternoon, sorry, but this is where it becomes relative in this particular chart. So we've got a very strong Venus here in Taurus in rulership. In the ninth house, and the ninth house is connected with the higher mind. It's got a kinship with the right brain, which is ruled by the moon. But if we look to the second house, cusp here, it's Libra. Okay, so Venus rules the second house. And then look at this quote. Sport has always had a positive impact on my life. I've always been active, and many of my closest friends have been met through the various sports and exercise classes. You never need to feel alone if you have sport in your life. So friendship and the emotional bonds that are made during exercise are very much part of our value system, of course, but it's partly to do with feeling energized as well. You know, these friendships and the bonds that are formed when she's exercising are very much part of energizing herself mentally and emotionally as well as physical. You know, and we've got Pluto in the second, so emotional bonds, exactly what I've just been saying. And of course, you know, Venus is formed, it's apex to a yod there with Pluto and Neptune. So you wonder perhaps, you know, because Venus is in conjunct Neptune, does she feel very itchy, start to feel uncomfortable, and there's an underlying irritation when you know that exercise can't take place, and that social aspect of it is missing. The social aspect here is a real key part of the emotional well-being in this chart, without a doubt. And just out of interest, when the injury occurred, the progressed moon was opposite the natal moon. So the progressed moon was in the 6th house. Progressed Mars was conjunct Jupiter. So there will be a lot of energy there, perhaps overdoing it, perhaps. The injury actually happened at home, which is interesting. During lockdown, many of our karate classes carried on over Zoom. So we were training in our living rooms over Zoom. So the accident happened at home. I don't know if it was on Zoom, but it happened at home. So a very moon theme again. There's a lot of fixed energy here. So the eclipses of this year have put a bit of pressure on this chart, as well as the Saturn-Uranus squares of last year and still in orb this year, which have picked up fixed planets there as well. So quite an intense year with sort of various planetary activity. So this is my next example. This is my final slide. No, it's not. I've got one more slide after this. But final example for today. So this is another lady. Sorry, I didn't mean to get two ladies, but it's just the way it worked out. So this person is a really busy woman. She's got 3 children, 2 of which are grown up. One is at primary school. She's very career driven, very ambitious, and enjoys being busy. So we've got a Moon Neptune relationship here yet again, which is mutable. She does scatter her energy in an awful lot of directions. She really does. And then she's got that Gemini stellium there with Sun, Mercury, and Saturn completing a T-square with Moon and Neptune. There's a huge amount of mental energy here. You know, that Gemini stellium in the 9th house. There's a lot of mental energy. And she has no off switch. You know, there's no off switch. She's also got Uranus in air, trying that stellium. There's no off switch, no mental off switch, definitely not. But this really relates to the first part of this quote. When cycling, I enjoy being out in the fresh air. This person has a huge amount of air in her chart. She doesn't want to be confined to home. She wants to be out in the fresh air. The views, nature, freedom, and space it gives me to clear my head is invaluable. I have so many ideas, thoughts, and solve so many of my worries whilst moving at speed, and the feeling of achievement when I get back covering such a distance. Neptune and Sagittarius opposite the Mercury planets, covering such a distance. There's no limits to that distance with Neptune and Sagittarius. Covering such a distance without feeling physically exhausted works like magic. Neptune, it's magic, without a doubt. And of course, this woman loves cycling, which is so perfect for all that Gemini energy, isn't it? Second part of the quote there. Of course, she's got that moon in Pisces, and Pisces rules the 6th house of health here. I feel I can master and overcome my inner arguments and commitment about going. I feel mentally it's something I cannot find from therapy or antidepressants or anything else. So medication doesn't even compare to exercise for this lady. Exercise is far more powerful than medication. And I'm certainly not saying anyone that's on medication, stop it and just rely on exercise. That has to be a conversation between you and a medical professional. But for this lady, no medication beats that feeling of going out on those long bike rides. And then just the last bit here, she has Mars up on the midheaven in Cancer, again, very ambitious, and she's an estate agent. She sells houses. Isn't that perfect for Mars and Cancer on the midheaven, selling houses? She's got that in a lovely water trine with the moon there. And what she says here, so this is about her emotions as well. This is how she feels emotionally as well as mentally, because they can be 2 different things. When I commit and can maintain a real exercise program, and this is an issue this lady has, she's got so much mutable energy that T-square, she does find it difficult to commit because she's scattered in so many different directions on a daily basis. I also have so much more energy mentally and physically. I am also able to support and encourage others much more, wishing them to feel and experience the same euphoria. That's her moon in Pisces. The euphoria she feels after that bike ride or going to the gym, which she doesn't enjoy as much. She wants to share that euphoria, and she feels she can support people better when she's in that more emotional and better headspace. So again, we're talking about very simple themes. We haven't pulled this chart apart in minute detail, but the themes there are very obvious, and that the moon and Neptune are so strong. So anyway, this is my final slide, because basically I think what it's about, spiritual and emotional condition, is as important as the physical, and we need to water both our minds and bodies. We've got to water them both. We've got to nourish them both. And just because I can, I've got one of my favorite videos on, because isn't this just where we wish we could be and how we could feel? Sometimes you do feel like this after exercise, but I could not have this on with that, when I've been talking about Moon and Neptune today.
Lovely.
Isn't it lovely?
It's beautiful.
I took that on holiday early this year. Every time I feel stressed, I just put that video on.
Oh, how lovely.
Great idea.
Yeah,